Welcome to this week's SV Lynx video. Well, over at the lot, we are working very hard on getting the hull ready to put basalt on in about a week or so. But today we kind of wanted to talk to you a little bit about our boat, and you can see we're standing in our artist rendition of the boat, and we wanted to talk to you about our choices that we've made between a performance and a cruising comfort catamaran.
Right. The thing is that we could call these pros and cons, but I'd actually rather talk about them as choices and compromises.
Yeah.
Because when you're deciding on something between a performance or a comfort catamaran, if you go one direction on one thing, that means you got to take away something on the other side. So you can improve something to do with performance, but that's at the cost of comfort, or you can add comfort, but that's at the cost of performance. And so there's a scale that goes from, extreme performance to completely, totally comfortable. And somewhere on that scale is your sweet spot. And so we worked on the design with Schionning on this to create the Solitaire 1520 at our sweet spot between a performance cat and a comfort cat. So now let's take a look at all the choices we made and the compromises that those caused that we had to live with to get exactly the boat that we want to sail around the world.
Yep.
So let's go take a look at that. Let's start with the performance cat. If you want performance, then you must have long, narrow hulls, at least the portion that's in the water. We based the design of the 1520 off of Schionning's Solitaire 1490 hulls. The reason for this was simple. We wanted to keep the speed of that design, which is why we chose to only make one change to the hull's design. We lengthened the waterline slightly.
We couldn't add much length without completely redesigning the hulls, and we didn't want to do that as it would mean re-engineering the entire boat. However, we did manage to increase the length to just about 50 feet or 1,520 centimeters, which is what gives this Solitaire 1520 her model name. Due to the natural curve of the hulls, adding any more length would cause the bottom of the hull line to come out of the water, and we don't want that as it causes noise and doesn't add a lot to the performance.
So now we have the lower portion of the hulls, which Schionning calls the canoes. Choosing to go with these narrow hulls brings us to our first and most major compromise: living space in the hulls, specifically the cabins, heads, and passageway. The Solitaire boats use two things to widen the hull living space above the canoes: chamfer panels and chines. If you aren't familiar with these, chamfer panels are an angled panel that comes up from the inside edge of the canoe to the bridge deck. This gives hulls a wider living space above the canoe, which are mostly bilges beneath the sole. Chines are a much smaller version of chamfer panels attached to the outside edge of the hull, but these only add a small amount of width, yet any additional space above those narrow canoes is good.
Even so, the living space in the hulls is very narrow. So that means no island beds. To get into the bed, we will have to climb up from the foot of the mattress. So that's a loss of comfort, which is a compromise we made to keep the boat's performance. However, we figure we'll spend very little time in the cabins. Basically, they're for sleeping. Compromise number 2 is the space for our heads. They have the same issue as the cabins, and we have to get a passageway next to them, which doesn't leave much room in the heads.
Also impacting the heads is another choice between a performance cat and a cruising comfort cat: dagger boards. These add speed to the boat, plus they allow for a shallow draft. But everything comes with a price, and dagger boards and their casings take up space in the already narrow hulls.
With only a small space for 2 heads, we had to make a choice: Did we want slightly larger wet heads, which mean you don't have a separate shower, but stand in the sink and toilet area to shower? This means everything gets wet and has to be cleaned.
The other choice was to go with smaller heads with separate showers or one shared shower. In the end, we decided to go with the single shared shower between the two heads. Sticking with one shower per hull allowed us to have enough space in the heads for a sink and toilet without taking away even more space in the cabins. In exchange, we got to add a standing locker into each of the cabins. Still, compared to a comfort cat from a production builder, such is the compromise for performance of cruising comfort design.
Fortunately, we did manage to get a decent amount of storage for each cabin. Let's take a look at what the stern and forward cabin storage looks like.
Let's start with the forward cabins. At the foot of each bed, there's a large drawer. There's also a set of shelves up here above the bed on the inside of the hull. At the head of the bed, there's a large storage compartment up here. And finally, under the bed and mattress is a hatch leading to a large compartment for long-term storage. And we added a standing locker at the outboard side of the helm, as I already mentioned.
Now, let's take a look at the rear cabins. They don't have as much storage as the forward cabins, which is mostly due to having the motors and batteries under the beds. They also lose the storage at the head of the bed, as that is the stern stairs up from the cockpit to the side decks. However, they do have 3 storage cabinets along the wall and the larger cabinets forward, plus the same hanging locker as the forward cabins.
As you can see, these narrow hulls limit the size of the living spaces in the cabins and heads. That's because the hulls were built for performance. But where this boat leans more toward a comfortable cruising boat is the design of the helm, salon, and cockpit. So let's take a look at those 3 locations next.
The Solitaire 1520 has a very nice size salon with a U-shaped galley, full forward-facing nav station/desk, a dining table, and a smaller sitting area forward. Both table areas convert into beds, though the main table will remain a table most of the time, and the sitting area will be configured as a daybed lounge most often. What they give us is versatility.
Right, if we have a larger crew on board for a short stay, we can use them both as beds. And if the weather's cold outside, like when we're above the Arctic Circle, we can configure both areas as tables to seat the entire crew inside the heated salon.
Now let's talk about the salon windows. We made major changes here to add very large windows for excellent viewing of the world, with 4 large opening hatches facing forward to add lots of ventilation. We also added 2 side hatches, one by the main table and one by the galley, for more cross ventilation.
This is a big, comfortable salon, something that most performance cats this size don't offer. If we compromised anywhere in the salon, we did so with the galley area storage. Here we had another choice to make. We could have more refrigerator freezer space or more dry goods storage, but not both.
In our galley layout, there's enough storage for pots, pans, and dishes, etc., and some dry goods in these storage areas under and next to the sink. However, a lot of our food stores will need to be located in other areas. We added 4 storage areas in the floor, 2 in the galley, and 2 near the main table, as you can see here.
The other places for storage are under the seats of both sitting areas. We also recently changed the design to add another drawer under the refrigerator freezer right down here. If we need more, we can use the cabinets at the nav station for food storage, or some of the space down in the hull passageway.
So, why did we use up dry storage for freezer refrigerator storage? The answer comes from our plan to sail around the world, possibly twice. That means we have to be ready to be in remote locations for extended periods, so we need more freezer space, especially as we'll often have a larger than typical crew on board.
We also want to have enough space to freeze a large fish we might catch when necessary. At other times, we may not need as much refrigeration space, so in those times we can turn off the power to save energy and still use the refrigerator space as dry food storage. If we catch a fish at that time, we can always move that dry food elsewhere and turn on the freezer.
We set up the boat to have a stand-up refrigerator and freezer with ice maker. Then there are 2 top-loading refrigerator freezers. The first is smaller and divided into 2 compartments, each of which can be a freezer or refrigerator. Then there's a larger single compartment model, which may also be a refrigerator or freezer. This gives us the adaptability to have up to 4 freezers, or 1 freezer and 4 refrigerators, or any combination between.
Okay, let's move out of the salon now. Another choice you must make is how high you want the boom. The lower down you can move it, the lower the center of effort is on the mainsail, and that helps performance. Think of it this way. The lower the center of effort, the more sail you may carry without tipping over the cat. So why would you want it higher up?
The answer is to put things under it. In the case of modern cruising comfort cats, they often want to put a seating area up on the cabin roof or even a flybridge. Or if you want a semi-raised helm position, then the boom can't be right on top of the cabin roof.
They generally go like this. The raised helm moves the boom up about 3 feet. The seating area raises it about 5 feet, and the flybridge can raise it as much as 7 or 8 feet. In our case, we chose to go with a raised helm, but not a seating area on the roof of the cockpit. That keeps our boom fairly low, just 3 feet off the roof. That also makes it a comfortable height to work on the mainsail when we need to stow it away or deal with any issues.
But there's another choice we made that also keeps us from having a seating area up on top of the cockpit. On some comfort cats, they keep the boom pretty low and figure you can duck underneath or have it just high enough for when you're seated. We chose not to do that to have more solar space on the cockpit roof, 5 kilowatts total. We needed that space for solar because we are also a hybrid diesel-electric boat, which means solar space is at a premium.
Speaking of seating areas, a lot of new designs are adding a seating area at the bow. These range from full cockpits with a door into the salon to a shallow seating area just behind the trampolines. Some even do away with the trampolines for even more seating. Being a performance cat, designers know that you may be sailing fast, and the bows may pierce a swell, so they design a large trampoline area to quickly shed all that green water. The faster the cat, the more likely this could happen.
Since we're traveling the world, we know we'll get into situations where we are taking green water over the bows, no matter how much we try to avoid that kind of weather. Sooner or later, the weather reports are going to be wrong, or the weather just changes rapidly, and you're caught out in a blow. For that reason, we chose to keep our bow clean. We want the water to drop down through the trampolines or shed off the sides of the deck without any impediments of seating areas.
We figure when we want to sit out on the foredeck at a nice anchorage, we'll just bring out folding seats or even beanbag chairs to give us the same kind of seating comfort at anchor. The fact is, you can't have everything. Comfort comes with compromises in performance. Everyone has to draw the line between performance and comfort at a different point on the line.
Now, notice we didn't say between speed and comfort. Really high sailing speeds are not what we are seeking in our performance cat. All we want is a boat that can average about 9 knots, but we don't plan to sail her much above 10 knots. If the wind is blowing strong enough for that, we'll reef the sails or start regenerating with both props.
And that'll slow us down. What we want is performance in light air, where we can sail in 6 or 7 knots of wind and expect to achieve about 5 knots. That's great performance, and it means we don't have to turn on our motors or engine. Then, when we do need to motor, we hope to use our electric motors and not our 80 horsepower diesel. A performance cat helps that as well, especially one with a very shallow draft. There just isn't a lot of wetted surface area in the water and less water to push out of the way. That will extend our range on our electric motors and batteries.
Now let's talk about weight. On one end of the scale is an extremely light performance cat, like one made from aluminum. An example of that kind of cat is the Mumby 48, which weighs 16,300 pounds or 7,400 kilograms. For a 48-foot cat, that is very light. An example at the other end of the scale is a 50-foot leopard, which weighs 45,415 pounds or 20,600 kilograms. Our Solitaire 1520 weighs in at 25,756 pounds or 8,400 kilograms.
The heavier the boat is, the harder it is for the wind to push it along, and the more sail area you must carry if you want decent speeds or, in our case, light wind performance. And that means more sail higher up, which is not desirable. So, in this case, it may seem like the Mumby might be the better choice, but there are other factors to consider besides speed. The lighter the boat, the more it is affected by outside forces, waves and wind to be precise. As you plow into a wave, a heavier boat will maintain a more constant speed due to the momentum of that weight.
A lighter boat is affected much more, meaning the crew will feel more deceleration and acceleration. This is just as true during wind gusts. The lighter boat will leap forward at even a slight increase in wind speed or decelerate faster if the gust of wind lets up. This makes for a less comfortable, surgy ride.
For comfort, you would want your cruising cat to weigh more. But if you want performance, then you want your boat to weigh less. We wanted to land in that sweet spot between comfort and performance, but lean a little more toward the lighter side. We believe our cat achieves that at her current weight, which makes SV Lynx 9,000 pounds heavier than a Mumby 48 and 20,000 pounds lighter than a Leopard 50.
Next up, fit and finish. The posher you want your boat to look, the heavier it will be. Even foam panels on the ceiling add weight, as do things like synthetic decking. Wood, soffits, and other padding and covers all add weight to the cat, and weight is the enemy of performance.
Recently, one of our patrons asked me if he could add soffits and lighting panels on the ceilings and sides of walls on a Solitaire 1520. This was because his wife went to a boat show and fell in love with the posh interior on some of these production cruising catamarans. I understand. It makes them look very nice and even adds a bit of sound deadening over hard surfaces. What I told him was that he could have that at the cost of speed or light wind performance.
What we're planning to do with SV Lynx is add just a touch of that to the boat, but not much. We just don't want to add too much weight, and therefore many of the surfaces will just be painted. We'll add some light veneer wood to dress up the cupboards and get rid of all the white look. We're still looking into flooring, but may put a synthetic floor in the cockpit and salon, but painted texture on the decks.
Using textured paint on the decks will cut down some of the weight and not have the issues of heating up as much in the sun. The shaded areas inside the cockpit and salon don't have that problem, so we could go with synthetic flooring inside if we choose.
So those are the choices and trade-offs that we made in helping design our boat. So let's go take a look and see what's going on at the lot.
Yeah, because we got some work done and we're getting prepared for the big Saturday when the basalt's going to be put on the starboard hull. So let's go take a look. So we got some of this shaped yesterday, but there's still a lot more of shaping to go here. And I'm going to get started with that today. It's a little bit cooler this morning, so I'm going to go full suit. That way I can keep that dust out of my hair and such. It was just too hot yesterday, but cooler today, so I'm going to work on this some more, see if I can't get this shaped up a little bit better. It's getting pretty close enough with this sander. We'll have to move to a flatter sander for the rest of this. So this is now rolling off of here pretty nicely. So, got to get the other side just like this. So we've got the other side done here, and we checked it with the other hull, and this is almost identical, if not identical. And by the time we fix it up with sanding, fine sanding, and our layers of fiberglass, in this case basalt actually, and stuff, it'll match precisely when we're done. So coming along and getting us closer to putting the full basalt onto this hull. You can hear Brian back there. He's sanding the last first fixes we did on it, and we'll probably just do one more round of that. So I'm going to go help him sand a little bit right now. So we're sanding round one of patching, but as you can see, there's just the certain spots that we have to do wherever you see the slickness there. Not the whole hull, because so much of this is fine already. So like this whole section is good. This is stuff up top here, and then stuff down below. But in general, it's pretty well smooth everywhere. And so it won't take too long to sand this. And then we'll patch up one more time, because I'm sure there's still a few little tiny things that we'll need to fix. And sand that one more time, and then we'll be ready for basalt. This morning, we're back to work on the, well, actually we're working on both hulls. We've already sanded some on the patches we did on the starboard canoe. And on this port side, we're going to do another round of some fixes. We've marked a few spots down here, and we're going to go ahead, and this time we're going to use the big trowel, because we're finding that there are a few depressions in here, and the smaller trowel is just not fixing those. So we're going to go with the big trowel so that we can span across those depressions. And these are like a 1/16 of an inch. They're not much of a depression, but in the right light with paint on there, you can see them, that warbly surface. So we're going to try and get that a little bit better. So that's what we're up to right now.
You want to go down there?
No. It's Saturday, and we've been here working on the sanding the hull. We've got the front of this all shaped now, so that's all perfect and ready for basalt. And the rest of the hull is completely sanded now. And as you can see, it looks really nice. There's just very, very, very little that we're going to have to fix. All of these seams are just perfect. No gaps in them, no dips, no holes. So this is all looking really good. We're going to take a look at it right now and just see if we can find, you know, a few spots that we might have to fix and repair those. Maybe a hole that we forgot to fill for one of the screw holes or something like that. So we'll just do a quick inspection of the whole thing, and then we're going to patch those up. And that's probably it for today. We'll call it a day at that point. So we're ahead of schedule again. We thought we would still be sanding this on Monday and Tuesday, but the fact is that not only that, but we're going to have the patching done also. And so that gives us plenty of time before next Saturday to get things just prepped for putting the basalt on. In fact, we'll probably get to work over on the port canoe over here and do some more sanding and stuff on it during next week, just to finish it up from 95% to 100%. So there we go. That's what Brian and I got done at the lot this week. A lot of sanding and such, just like we kind of did on the porthole. So we didn't want to saddle you with too much of that, but we did show you a little bit of what we got done this week. Obviously, we're prepping for the big day next Saturday when we have a huge crew coming out to get the basalt layers done. And we hope you enjoyed the section that we did to begin with there in our boat here, where we talked about the performance versus comfort cruising catamaran, and for us, what the sweet spot is between those two.
So thank you to everyone, our patrons listed here. Thank you so much for all your support, and thank you to our viewers for viewing and liking and commenting. And as always, don't forget to like, subscribe, and click on the bell icon to be notified of our next video.
Now, we didn't get to a patron exclusive video this week, and that was just because we got so busy we didn't have time. But there will be one next week. So if you're part of our special crew and above group, then you'll get that video. And of course, if you're not, you can always join us by going to Patreon. So thanks so much. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.